When I became a widow, my daughter-in-law humiliated me and demoted me to bathroom cleaner at the company. When my millionaire son returned to the country and found out, I got 26 messages from her saying, "What did you do? I'm glad to have you here." Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Velma Richardson, and 6 months ago, I buried my husband of 42 years. Today, I'm on my knees scrubbing toilet bowls in the company we built together from nothing. The ammonia burns my eyes as I lean over the executive bathroom sink, my arthritic hands gripping the sponge tighter than necessary. Through the thin walls, I can hear Amara's voice echoing down the hallway, sharp and commanding as she addresses the morning staff meeting. My daughter-in-law's tone carries that particular edge she reserves for people she considers beneath her, which, apparently, now includes me. The quarterly reports show we're exceeding projections by 12%, Amara announces, her voice growing louder as she passes by the bathroom door. Of course, this success comes from streamlining our operations and eliminating unnecessary baggage. I pause in my scrubbing. Unnecessary baggage. 6 months ago, I sat in that same conference room as co-founder and majority shareholder of Richardson Industries. Today, I'm the cleaning lady nobody notices. The bathroom door creaks open, and Amara's designer heels click against the marble floor. She's 34. Beautiful in that cold, calculated way that photographs well in business magazines. Her honey blonde hair is pulled back in a severe bun, and her navy Armani suit probably costs more than most people make in a month. "Velma," she says, not bothering to hide her irritation. "You missed a spot by the mirror." I look up from where I'm kneeling, my knees protesting against the hard floor. "I'll get it." "See that you do." Amara checks her reflection, adjusting her pearl earrings. "And when you're finished here, the boardroom needs attention. We have the Henderson Group coming in at 2, and I won't have them thinking we can't maintain basic standards." The Henderson Group. Harold and I courted them for 3 years before finally landing their account. They were the breakthrough that took our small manufacturing company and turned it into the multi-million-dollar enterprise it is today. Now, Amara speaks of them like they're her personal conquest. "Of course," I manage, my voice hoarse from the cleaning chemicals. Amara smooths down her skirt and heads toward the door, then pauses. "Oh, and Velma? Try to stay out of sight when they arrive. I've told them we've upgraded our service standards." The door closes with a soft thud, leaving me alone with the echo of her words and the smell of industrial-strength bleach. I sit back on my heels, staring at my reflection in the spotless mirror. When did I become invisible in my own company? It started the day Harold died. Heart attack, sudden and brutal, in the middle of our kitchen while we were planning our retirement. One moment he was laughing at something on the morning news, the next he was gone. 42 years of marriage, 40 years of building a business together, and just like that, I was alone. The reading of the will was a formality. Harold and I had discussed everything beforehand. Graham would inherit the controlling shares of the company, 60% to be exact. It made sense. He was our only child. He'd worked in the business for 15 years, and we wanted to secure his future. I kept 25%, enough to maintain my voice in major decisions, but not enough to block Graham if he had a vision for expansion. What we hadn't discussed was Amara. Graham met her 3 years ago at a business conference in Chicago. She was a junior executive at a consulting firm, ambitious and sharp, with an MBA from Northwestern and a smile that could charm investors out of their last dollar. They married 18 months later in a ceremony that cost more than our first house. I tried to like her. I really did. But there was something in the way she looked at our home, our business, our life, like she was calculating its worth and finding it lacking. Still, Graham was happy, and that was enough for me. After Harold's funeral, as I struggled to find my footing in a world suddenly too large and empty, Amara took charge. "You shouldn't be alone in that big house," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Why don't you come stay with us for a while?" Their guest room felt more like a prison than refuge. Every suggestion I made about the business was met with patient explanations about how things work differently now. Every attempt to engage with company decisions was redirected to, "Let Graham and me handle the complicated stuff." Then came the intervention. "Mom," Graham said one evening over dinner, his boyish face creased with worry, "Amara and I have been talking, and we're concerned about you. I set down my fork, a cold dread settling in my stomach. Concerned about what? You seem lost, Amara interjected gently. Since Dad passed, you've been drifting. It's not healthy for someone your age to have no purpose, no structure. I have purpose, I protested. I have the company. The company is in good hands, Graham interrupted. But you need something more. Manageable. Something that gives you routine without the stress of major business decisions. That's how I became the cleaning lady at Richardson Industries. Light custodial work, they called it. Just until you find your feet again. Amara assured me it was temporary, a way to stay connected to the business without the pressure of executive responsibilities. 6 months later, I'm still here, invisible and unheard, watching my life's work from the wrong side of the glass. I finish cleaning the mirror and gather my supplies. The hallway is empty as I make my way to the storage closet, my footsteps muffled by the thick carpet that Harold and I chose together 15 years ago. The walls are lined with photographs of company milestones, groundbreaking ceremonies, ribbon cuttings, award presentations. In most of them, Harold and I stand side by side, smiling at a camera and a future we thought we understood. There's a new photo near the elevator, a glossy 8x10 of Amara shaking hands with the mayor at some civic function. The plaque beneath reads, Amara Richardson, CEO and President, Richardson Industries, CEO and President. Not interim CEO, not acting president. The titles that took Harold and me 40 years to earn, she claimed in 6 months. I'm still staring at the photograph when I hear footsteps behind me. It's Janet from accounting, a woman about my age who's worked here for nearly 20 years. Mrs. Richardson, she says quietly, glancing around to make sure we're alone. I've been meaning to ask, are you doing all right? The genuine concern in her voice nearly breaks me. When was the last time someone asked how I was feeling? When was the last time someone looked at me and saw a person instead of an obstacle? I'm fine, Janet. Thank you for asking. She hesitates, then leans closer. If you ever need anything, I mean anything at all, you just let me know, okay? I nod, not trusting my voice. Janet squeezes my shoulder gently before continuing down the hall, leaving me alone with the photographs and the weight of my own invisibility. But as I stand there, looking at Amara's smug smile in that perfect frame, I feel something stirring inside me that I haven't felt in months. It's not anger, exactly, and it's not grief. It's something sharper, more focused. It's determination. Because Amara made one crucial mistake when she decided to erase me from my own company. She assumed I was powerless, that losing Harold meant losing everything that mattered. She assumed that a 67-year-old widow would simply fade away when pushed aside. She assumed wrong. What Amara doesn't know could destroy her. The safety deposit box key feels cold in my palm as I sit in my car outside First National Bank. It's the same bank where Harold and I opened our first business account 40 years ago, back when we had more dreams than dollars, and the loan officer looked at us like we were children playing dress-up. I haven't been here since Harold's funeral arrangements. Haven't needed to. But last night, lying in that sterile guest room that Amara calls my space, I remembered something Harold said during one of our late-night conversations about succession planning. Velma, he'd said, his hand finding mine across the kitchen table, promise me something. If anything ever happens to me, if things go sideways with the business, remember the insurance policy. At the time, I thought he meant our life insurance. Now, 6 months later, I understand he meant something entirely different. The bank lobby smells like old carpet and fresh coffee. Mrs. Patterson, the branch manager, recognizes me immediately. She's been here almost as long as we've been customers, and her face brightens when she sees me approach the counter. Mrs. Richardson, how lovely to see you. How are you holding up, dear? Another person who actually sees me. I'm managing, thank you. I need to access my safety deposit box. Of course. Box 247, correct? I nod, though my heart is racing. Box 247 was Harold's private box, the one he maintained separately from our joint accounts. I only learned about it 2 weeks before he died, when he pressed the key into my hand and made me promise to memorize the box number. The vault is silent except for the soft click of Mrs. Patterson's heels on the polished floor. She inserts her master key, waits for me to insert mine, and turns them simultaneously. The metal door swings open to reveal a narrow compartment containing a single manila envelope. "Take your time, dear," Mrs. Patterson says softly. "Just ring the bell when you're finished." Alone in the small viewing room, I open the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside are documents I've never seen before: legal papers, bank statements, and a letter in Harold's familiar handwriting. "My dearest Velma, if you're reading this, then something has happened to me and you've needed to open this box. I pray that day never comes, but if it does, I want you to know that I've tried to protect you and our legacy the best way I know how." The documents in this envelope represent 15% of Richardson Industries stock, shares that are registered under a holding company I established 5 years ago. This gives you, combined with your existing 25%, a controlling 40% interest in the company. I never told you about this because I hoped it would never be necessary, but I've watched how Graham's priorities have shifted since he married Amara, and I've seen how she looks at our business like it's her personal treasure chest. If something happens to me, if they try to push you aside or diminish your role in the company we built together, these shares are your insurance policy. The holding company, VH Enterprises, is completely legal and properly documented. Samuel Morrison at Morrison & Associates has all the details and is prepared to execute the transfer whenever you're ready. Use this wisely, my love. Not for revenge, but for justice. Our company should serve our family, not the other way around. Forever yours, Harold. My hands shake as I set down the letter. 15%. Hidden shares that Amara has no idea exist. Combined with my existing stake, that gives me not just a voice in company decisions, but the power to override them. I examine the bank statements more closely. The holding company account shows regular dividend payments. My 15% share of company profits that I never knew I was earning. The balance is substantial, more than enough to maintain my independence if I choose to leave Graham and Amara's house. But leaving isn't what Harold had in mind. These documents aren't an escape route. They're a weapon. I gather the papers carefully, my mind already working through the implications. Harold knew. Somehow he saw this coming and prepared for it. He understood that Amara wouldn't be content to share power, that she'd find ways to marginalize me until I disappeared entirely from the company we built. The drive back to Richardson Industries takes 20 minutes, but my perspective has completely shifted. When I walk through those glass doors, I'm no longer the broken widow they've relegated to janitorial duty. I'm a majority shareholder, conducting covert surveillance. Amara is in the lobby when I return, speaking animatedly with 2 men in expensive suits, the Henderson Group representatives, no doubt. Oh, she's using her full charm offensive, the smile that probably convinced Graham to propose and definitely convinced investors to sign massive contracts. Richardson Industries has evolved significantly in recent months, she's saying as I slip past them toward the supply closet. We've streamlined operations, eliminated redundancies, and positioned ourselves for unprecedented growth. Redundancies? Is that what she calls me? I retrieve my cleaning cart and make my way toward the executive floor, moving slowly enough to appear occupied with my work while listening to every conversation, observing every interaction. For 6 months, I've been invisible in this building. Now I realize that invisibility is a superpower. The executive conference room is buzzing with activity as staff prepares for the Henderson meeting. I enter quietly, moving efficiently around the massive mahogany table that Harold and I bought to celebrate our 10th anniversary in business. The table where we've signed deals worth millions, where we've made decisions that affected hundreds of employees and their families. Make sure the presentation materials are arranged perfectly, Amara instructs her assistant, a nervous young woman named Sarah, and double-check the financial projections. The Henderson Group doesn't tolerate sloppy work. I continue dusting, apparently invisible to everyone in the room, but I'm listening to every word, watching every gesture. Amara reviews the presentation slides with the kind of possessive pride that makes my stomach turn. She's presenting our 40-year company history as her personal success story, with only passing mentions of Harold and me as previous management. Mrs. Richardson? Sarah approaches me hesitantly. Could you please work around the presentation area? We don't want to disturb the setup. I nod silently and move to the far end of the room, where a series of financial charts are displayed on easels. As I dust the frames, I study the numbers more carefully than I have in months. Revenue is up, certainly, but several line items catch my attention. Consulting fees have tripled. Executive compensation has increased dramatically. Marketing expenses have skyrocketed, much of it going to the same public relations firm where Amara worked before joining our company. It's not illegal, necessarily, but it's inefficient, wasteful, the kind of spending that Harold and I always avoided, preferring to reinvest profits into equipment, employee benefits, and research and development. The cleaning lady seems very thorough. One of the Henderson representatives comments as they enter the room early. Amara glances at me dismissively. We believe in maintaining high standards throughout the organization. No detail is too small for our attention. High standards. If only they knew what standards Harold and I established when we built this company from nothing. The meeting begins, and I make myself as inconspicuous as possible while continuing my work. Amara's presentation is polished and professional, but she's making promises that concern me. Accelerated delivery timelines, reduced per-unit costs, expanded capacity, all the things clients want to hear, but difficult commitments to fulfill without sacrificing quality or employee welfare. These improvements in efficiency, Mr. Henderson asks, how have you achieved them so quickly? Aggressive restructuring, Amara replies confidently. We've eliminated outdated processes, redundant positions, and inefficient management structures. Richardson Industries today is lean, focused, and ready for the challenges of tomorrow. I know what she's not saying. The redundant positions were longtime employees who understood our products and our customers. The outdated processes were quality control measures that Harold insisted on implementing. The inefficient management structures were the collaborative decision-making systems that made our employees feel valued and heard. As the meeting continues, I finish my cleaning and slip out of the conference room, but I don't go far. Instead, I position myself at the copy machine just outside the door, where I can hear every word while appearing to be occupied with legitimate work. That's when I hear something that makes my blood run cold. Of course, these efficiency gains are just the beginning, Amara is saying. Within the next 18 months, I anticipate additional restructuring that will position Richardson Industries for acquisition by a larger firm. The market value has never been higher. Acquisition. She's planning to sell our company. My hands grip the edge of the copy machine as the full scope of Amara's plan becomes clear. She's not just trying to run Richardson Industries. She's preparing to liquidate it. All those efficiency improvements, all that cost-cutting, all the elimination of redundancies, it's not about building a better company. It's about making us look attractive to buyers. The meeting ends with handshakes and promises to move forward aggressively with this new partnership. As the Henderson representatives leave, I hear Amara scheduling follow-up calls and discussing implementation timelines. I return to the supply closet, my mind reeling. Harold's letter said to use the hidden shares wisely, not for revenge, but for justice. But what constitutes justice when someone is planning to destroy everything you've spent a lifetime building? That evening, as I sit in my temporary bedroom listening to Graham and Amara discuss their day, I make a decision. Tomorrow I'll call Samuel Morrison and learn exactly what my options are. But tonight, I begin documenting everything I've observed, every wasteful expense, every questionable decision, every sign that Amara is more interested in cashing out than building up. Because Harold was right about one thing. Our company should serve our family, not the other way around. And I won't let anyone destroy his legacy without a fight. Samuel Morrison's law office feels like stepping back in time. Dark wood paneling, leather-bound books, and the faint smell of pipe tobacco that reminds me painfully of Harold. Sam has been our family attorney for 25 years, handling everything from business contracts to Harold's will. If anyone understands the full scope of what we built together, it's him. Velma, he says, rising from behind his massive desk. I've been wondering when you'd come to see me. You knew I would. Sam gestures to the chair across from his desk, the same one where Harold and I sat together countless times over the years. Harold was very specific about the timing. He said you'd know when you were ready. I settle into the familiar leather chair and pull out the documents from the safety deposit box. I'm ready now. Sam examines the papers with the thoroughness that made him invaluable to our business. His gray eyebrows furrow as he reviews the holding company structure, the stock certificates, and Harold's letter. "This is all completely legitimate," he says finally. Harold was meticulous about ensuring everything was properly documented and filed. "VH Enterprises holds 15% of Richardson Industries stock, with you as the sole beneficiary upon Harold's death. So I really do have controlling interest?" 40% total, yes. That makes you the largest single shareholder. Sam leans back in his chair, studying me over his reading glasses. "The question is, what do you want to do with that power?" I tell him everything. Amara's treatment of me, the company changes I've observed, the acquisition plans I overheard. Sam listens without interruption, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. "What you're describing sounds like breach of fiduciary duty," he says when I finish. "If Amara is making decisions that benefit her personally at the expense of shareholders, that's legally problematic. But how do I prove it?" Sam smiles, and for the first time in months, I feel like someone is truly on my side. "Very carefully. We need documentation, evidence of specific actions that demonstrate a pattern of self-dealing or gross mismanagement. I've been keeping notes. Good. But we need more than observations. We need access to financial records, board meeting minutes, contracts with vendors, the kind of detailed information that proves intent. I think about my position in the company, how I've become invisible to everyone around me. I might be able to get that information. Be extremely careful, Velma. We can't afford to give them any reason to question your motives or your methods. Everything has to be above board." That afternoon, I returned to Richardson Industries with a new purpose. My cleaning cart becomes mobile surveillance equipment, allowing me to access every office, every conference room, every place where important documents might be left unguarded. It doesn't take long to find what I'm looking for. Amara's office is a temple to her own ambition. The walls are covered with magazine articles featuring her as rising star and business innovator. Her desk is organized with military precision, every pen and paperclip in its designated place. But it's the filing cabinet that catches my attention. The bottom drawer is slightly ajar, revealing a thick folder labeled Strategic Planning, Confidential. My heart pounds as I check the hallway, then carefully slide the drawer open. Inside are documents that make my worst fears look optimistic. Correspondence with 3 different acquisition firms, all expressing interest in purchasing Richardson Industries. Financial projections showing how much each department could be streamlined before sale. And most damaging of all, a consulting agreement between Richardson Industries and Pinnacle Strategic Solutions, Amara's former employer, for services that appear to duplicate work our existing staff already performs. I photograph each document with my phone, my hands trembling slightly as I work. The consulting fees alone total nearly $200,000 over 6 months, money that could have gone to employee bonuses, equipment upgrades, or research and development. But it's the timeline that truly shocks me. According to these documents, Amara has been planning this acquisition strategy since before Harold died. The consulting agreement is dated 3 weeks before his heart attack. Finding everything you need? I spin around, my heart stopping as I see Amara standing in the doorway. She's early from her lunch meeting, and her expression is a mixture of suspicion and barely controlled rage. "I was just cleaning," I stammer, closing the drawer as casually as possible. Amara steps into the office, closing the door behind her. The click of the latch sounds ominous in the sudden silence. "Cleaning?" she repeats, her voice dangerously soft. "In my private filing cabinet." The drawer was open. I thought maybe some papers had fallen. "Cut the act, Velma." Amara moves closer, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floor. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice? The way you've been hovering around meetings, lingering in conference rooms, asking Janet from accounting those innocent little questions about company procedures." My mouth goes dry. She's been watching me as carefully as I've been watching her. "I don't know what you mean." Amara laughs, but there's no humor in it. "You know exactly what I mean. The Grieving Widow Act was convincing for a while, but I always suspected there was more to you than met the eye." Harold was too smart to leave his precious company completely unprotected. She knows. Not the details, perhaps, but she knows I'm not as powerless as I've pretended to be. I think there's been a misunderstanding, I say, moving toward the door. Amara blocks my path. The only misunderstanding is thinking you could outsmart me. I've been preparing for this possibility since the day Harold died. Maybe even before. The admission hangs in the air between us like a confession. Before Harold died. She's just confirmed what the consulting agreement suggested. That her plans for the company began while my husband was still alive. Graham will be interested to hear about this conversation, I say quietly. Graham is in Singapore until next Friday, Amara replies with a satisfied smile, closing a deal that will make his acquisition plans much more attractive to buyers. By the time he returns, any concerns you might have raised will be properly contextualized. Contextualized. She means explained away, dismissed, attributed to grief-induced confusion or age-related decline. You can't keep me away from my own son. I don't need to keep you away from Graham, Amara says, settling into her desk chair with predatory satisfaction. I just need to help him understand that your recent behavior indicates you're not adapting well to your new circumstances. The cleaning job was supposed to give you purpose, but instead it seems to have given you delusions of relevance. The cruelty in her voice is breathtaking. She's not just planning to steal our company. She's planning to gaslight me into believing I'm losing my mind. Harold trusted you, I say, my voice barely above a whisper. Harold was a sentimental old man who built a good foundation but lacked vision for growth. I'm going to turn his little family business into something significant. Amara's eyes glitter with ambition. And when I'm finished, everyone will remember Richardson Industries as the company I created, not the one you and Harold stumbled through for 40 years. The insult to Harold's memory hits me like a physical blow. This woman who came into our lives 3 years ago, who smiled sweetly at family dinners while calculating how to dismantle everything we built, has the audacity to call my husband sentimental and our life's work a stumble. You're making a mistake, I tell her. The only mistake was Harold's, thinking he could protect you from the realities of modern business. Amara stands, smoothing down her skirt with casual authority. This company needs leadership that understands global markets, innovative financing, strategic positioning. Not someone who thinks success means keeping the same employees for 20 years and buying Christmas bonuses because it's the right thing to do. She's mocking the values that made Richardson Industries successful, the employee loyalty and customer relationships that sustained us through economic downturns and industry changes. To her, those relationships are inefficiencies to be eliminated. Now, Amara continues, I suggest you finish your cleaning duties and go home. Take a few days to think about whether this arrangement is really working for you. I'd hate for Graham to return and find that his mother's mental state has deteriorated to the point where professional care might be necessary. The threat is unmistakable. Step aside quietly or be declared mentally incompetent. I nod silently and gather my cleaning supplies, but my mind is racing. Amara has just made several critical errors. She's revealed the scope of her plans, admitted to deceiving Graham, and threatened me directly. Most importantly, she's underestimated me completely. As I leave her office, I'm already planning my next moves. The photographs on my phone are just the beginning. If Amara wants to play this game, she's about to learn that she's not the only one who can plan ahead. But first, I need to confirm something that will change everything. That evening, I call the office number for Pinnacle Strategic Solutions, the consulting firm that's been billing Richardson Industries for mysterious services. When the receptionist answers, I ask to speak with their accounts receivable department about a payment inquiry. Certainly, the receptionist says. May I ask which client account you're calling about? Richardson Industries. One moment, please. After a brief hold, she returns. I'm sorry, but we don't show any active accounts under that name. Are you sure you have the correct company? My heart pounds. Could you check under Amara Richardson? She might have set up the account personally. Another pause. Yes, we do have an account under that name. Would you like me to transfer you to our consulting services department? I hang up quickly, my hands shaking. The consulting fees aren't going to Pinnacle Strategic Solutions as a company expense. They're going directly to Amara personally, disguised as legitimate business costs. She's not just planning to sell our company. She's been stealing from it. Graham comes home 3 days early. I'm in the kitchen making coffee when I hear his key in the front door, followed by the sound of luggage hitting the marble entryway. Amara's sharp intake of breath carries from the living room, where she's been spending the morning on conference calls about operational efficiency metrics. "Surprise!" Graham calls out, his voice carrying that boyish enthusiasm that reminds me so much of Harold. The Singapore deal wrapped up ahead of schedule. I hear the rush of Amara's footsteps across the hardwood floor, followed by the sounds of reunion, kisses, exclamations about how much she missed him, questions about the flight. But underneath her enthusiasm, I detect something else. Panic. "You should have called," Amara says, her voice slightly strained. "I would have prepared something special for dinner. I wanted to surprise you." Graham laughs. "Besides, I'm more interested in hearing about what's been happening here. How are things at the office? How's Mom adjusting?" The question hangs in the air like a loaded gun. Through the kitchen doorway, I can see them in the living room. Graham looks tired but successful, his expensive suit wrinkled from travel, but his face bright with accomplishment. Amara stands beside him, her manicured hand resting on his arm, her expression carefully composed. "Your mother is." Amara pauses, choosing her words carefully. "She's been struggling a bit, actually. The transition has been harder than we anticipated." Graham's smile fades. "What kind of struggling?" "Come sit down." Amara guides him to the sofa, her voice taking on that tone of patient concern she uses when delivering bad news to clients. "We need to talk about some concerning behavior." I move closer to the doorway, staying just out of sight while straining to hear every word. "What do you mean concerning behavior?" Graham asks. "She's been confused lately, paranoid even. Yesterday I caught her going through my office files, claiming she was cleaning, but the cleaning supplies were nowhere near my desk." Amara's voice carries just the right mix of sadness and worry. "I think the grief is affecting her more than we realized." My hands clench around my coffee mug. She's already starting to plant seeds of doubt about my mental state. "That doesn't sound like Mom," Graham says slowly. "I know, sweetheart. That's what makes it so concerning." She's also been asking Janet from accounting strange questions about company finances, as if she doesn't trust our management decisions. And some of the other employees have mentioned that she seems to be listening to conversations that don't concern her. Each accusation is technically true, but completely stripped of context. Yes, I was in her office, but I found evidence of embezzlement. Yes, I asked Janet questions, but I was trying to understand how company procedures had changed. Yes, I've been listening to conversations, but only because I've been excluded from all legitimate channels of communication. "Maybe she just needs time," Graham suggests, but I can hear the uncertainty creeping into his voice. "Of course, time might help, but Graham, honey, I'm worried about what might happen if this continues." The other employees are starting to notice. Yesterday, one of the Henderson Group representatives asked about the cleaning lady who seemed very interested in our business discussions. "It's becoming awkward," the Henderson Group. "She's using my own former clients to undermine my credibility." "What are you suggesting?" Graham asks. "I think we need to consider that the current arrangement isn't working for anyone. Your mother clearly needs more support than we can provide while maintaining our professional responsibilities. And the company needs leadership that isn't distracted by family concerns." She's doing it. Right now, while I listen from the kitchen, she's maneuvering Graham into agreeing that I need to be removed from the business and possibly from their home as well. "I don't know," Graham says. "Mom's been through so much. First losing Dad, then adjusting to all these changes, which is exactly why she needs proper care from people trained to help with grief-related issues. There are excellent facilities that specialize in helping older adults transition through major life changes. Facilities. She's suggesting they put me in a home. I'm not putting my mother in a nursing home," Graham says firmly, and for a moment, I feel a surge of hope. "Not a nursing home," Amara corrects quickly. "A wellness community, somewhere she can maintain her independence while having access to counseling, social activities, people her own age who understand what she's going through." It's a masterful performance. She's not suggesting abandonment, she's suggesting care. She's not criticizing me, she's expressing concern. She's making Graham feel like removing me from the company and the family home is actually the compassionate choice. I should talk to her, Graham says. Of course. But Graham, when you do, please be prepared for resistance. Paranoid thinking often includes suspicion of the people trying to help. She might say things about me, about the company, that seem concerning. It's a common symptom of grief-induced cognitive decline. Paranoid thinking. Cognitive decline. She's already provided Graham with explanations for anything I might tell him about her behavior. I hear footsteps approaching the kitchen and quickly busy myself at the sink, scrubbing the coffee mug with unnecessary vigor. Mom? I turn, forcing a smile as Graham enters the kitchen. He looks older than when he left for Singapore, and there are worry lines around his eyes that weren't there before. Graham, you're home early. How did the trip go? He hugs me, and for a moment I let myself enjoy the simple comfort of my son's embrace. When he was little, his hugs could fix almost anything. Now they feel like goodbye. The trip went well, but I'm more concerned about you. How are you doing? Really? The question is loaded with Amara's insinuations. He's not asking how I am. He's evaluating my mental state. I'm managing, I say carefully. It's been an adjustment, but I'm finding my routine. Amara mentioned you've been having some difficulties at the office. Here it is, the moment where I have to choose between defending myself and playing along with her narrative. If I tell Graham what I've discovered about Amara's embezzlement and acquisition plans, he'll hear it through the filter of grief-induced paranoia. But if I say nothing, I let her continue destroying everything Harold and I built. The office has changed a lot since your father died, I say diplomatically. Change can be hard, Graham agrees. But I can see him analyzing my response for signs of instability. Maybe it would help if you had some distance from the day-to-day operations. You could focus on taking care of yourself instead of worrying about business decisions. The business was my life for 40 years, Graham. It's not just about taking care of myself. I know, Mom, but you and Dad built something incredible, and now it's my responsibility to keep it growing. That might mean making decisions you wouldn't have made, but that doesn't mean they're wrong decisions. He's been coached. Amara has prepared him for this conversation, given him talking points about respect for the past, while embracing the future. What kind of decisions? I ask. Graham hesitates, glancing toward the living room where Amara is undoubtedly listening to every word. Strategic decisions about market positioning, operational efficiency, growth opportunities. Business is more complex now than it was when you and Dad started the company. More complex, as if 40 years of experience counts for nothing in the face of Amara's MBA and consulting background. Have you considered that some of those strategic decisions might not be in the company's best interests? The question hangs between us, and I see the exact moment when Graham's expression shifts from concern to alarm. In his eyes, I've just confirmed Amara's warnings about paranoid thinking and suspicion of management decisions. Mom, he says gently, I think you might be overthinking things. Amara has been doing an excellent job managing day-to-day operations while I've been focused on expansion opportunities. Our quarterly numbers are stronger than ever. Numbers can be manipulated, Graham. What are you saying? This is it. The moment where I either reveal what I know and risk being dismissed as a paranoid old woman, or stay silent and watch Amara continue her systematic destruction of our family legacy. I choose the middle path. I'm saying that your father and I didn't build this company by looking only at quarterly numbers. We built it by taking care of our people, maintaining quality standards, and thinking about long-term sustainability rather than short-term profits. Graham relaxes slightly, apparently relieved that my concerns are philosophical rather than accusatory. Of course, those values are still important. But we also have to adapt to changing market conditions. What kind of market conditions require paying $200,000 in consulting fees to a company that doesn't actually provide any services? The words are out before I can stop them. Graham stares at me, his face cycling through confusion, concern, and something that might be fear. Mom, what are you talking about? Pinnacle Strategic Solutions. We've paid them nearly $200,000 in consulting fees over the past 6 months, but when I called their office, they don't have any record of providing services to Richardson Industries. You called them? Mom, why would you? Because I've been watching what's happening to our company. And I've seen expenses that don't make sense, decisions that prioritize appearance over substance, and strategic planning that looks more like preparation for liquidation than expansion. Graham's face has gone pale. You've been investigating the company finances? I've been observing. When you spend 40 years building something, you notice when it starts being torn down. Torn down? Mom, our revenue is up 12% this quarter. We've streamlined operations, improved efficiency. You've fired longtime employees, eliminated quality control measures, and increased executive compensation while cutting benefits for the people who actually do the work. Those were necessary adjustments for making the company look attractive to buyers. Silence. Graham stares at me with an expression I've never seen before. Not concern, not confusion, but genuine shock. What buyers? He asks quietly. Ask your wife. The words land like a bomb in the quiet kitchen. Graham's face cycles through disbelief, anger, and something else. Recognition, perhaps. Or fear that what I'm saying might be true. You're saying Amara is planning to sell the company? I'm saying you should look at the strategic planning documents in her office before you decide I'm suffering from grief-induced cognitive decline. Graham winces. She used those exact words with him, and now he realizes I overheard their conversation. Mom, Graham. Amara's voice cuts through the tension as she appears in the kitchen doorway. Her smile is bright and concerned, but her eyes are calculating. Is everything all right? You both look upset. We're fine, Graham says, but his voice lacks conviction. Your mother seems agitated, Amara observes, moving to stand beside Graham. Maybe this conversation should continue when she's had some time to rest. I'm not agitated, I say calmly. I'm concerned about what's happening to the company your husband's father and I spent 40 years building. Amara's smile doesn't waver, but I see her hand tighten on Graham's arm. Of course you're concerned. Change is always difficult, especially when you're grieving. But Graham and I are working very hard to honor Harold's legacy while positioning the company for future success. By preparing it for acquisition, the accusation hangs in the air like smoke. Amara's smile falters for just a fraction of a second before snapping back into place. I think there's been a misunderstanding, she says carefully. Show him the documents, I tell her. The correspondence with acquisition firms, the consulting agreements, the timeline for liquidation. Show him everything. Amara looks at Graham, her expression a perfect mixture of sadness and concern. Sweetheart, this is exactly what I was worried about. Your mother has been going through my private files, creating elaborate theories about perfectly normal business documents. Are they perfectly normal? Graham asks, and I hear something new in his voice. Doubt. Of course they are. Every responsible CEO explores multiple strategic options. That doesn't mean, show me, Graham interrupts. For the first time since I've known her, Amara looks genuinely afraid. The ride to Richardson Industries is silent, except for the hum of Graham's BMW engine and the soft clicking of Amara's fingernails against her phone screen. She's been texting frantically since we left the house, her usual composure cracking with each passing mile. Graham parks in his reserved space near the executive entrance, the same spot where Harold used to park his modest Ford pickup. Everything about the building looks the same from the outside. The clean brick facade, the subtle bronze lettering that spells out Richardson Industries in the font Harold and I chose 20 years ago. But inside, I know, everything has changed. This is ridiculous, Amara says as we walk through the lobby. I can't believe you're entertaining these fantasies. Then showing me the documents should clear everything up, Graham replies, his voice tight with barely controlled tension. The elevator ride to the executive floor feels eternal. I watch the numbers climbing. 3, 4, 5, and remember riding this same elevator with Harold when we were designing these offices. We were so proud of what we'd built, so confident that we were creating something that would last generations. Amara's office door closes behind us with a soft click. She moves immediately to her desk, positioning herself between Graham and the filing cabinet I was searching through yesterday. Before we do this, she says, her voice taking on that patient, therapeutic tone again, I want you to understand what you're about to see. Strategic planning requires exploring all possibilities. Every responsible CEO has contingency plans. Stop explaining and start showing, Graham says. Amara's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. She opens the filing cabinet with deliberate slowness, removing the folder labeled Strategic Planning, Confidential. Her hands shake slightly as she places it on the desk. Graham opens the folder and begins reading. I watch his face as he processes each document, the acquisition inquiries, the valuation reports, the timeline for optimal liquidation. His expression shifts from skepticism to confusion to something approaching horror. Pinnacle Strategic Solutions, he reads aloud. $200,000 in consulting fees for market positioning analysis and acquisition readiness assessment. He looks up at Amara. What is this? Exactly what it says. Market analysis to help us understand our position relative to competitors. Graham pulls out his phone and dials a number. Pinnacle Strategic Solutions? Yes, I'd like to speak with someone about the consulting work you've been doing for Richardson Industries. The conversation is brief. Graham's face grows darker with each exchange. When he hangs up, his voice is deadly quiet. They have no record of any work for Richardson Industries, but they do have an account under your personal name. Graham, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been stealing from my family's company? That you've been planning to sell it without telling me? It's not stealing, Amara snaps, her composure finally cracking. It's strategic planning, and I wasn't going to sell anything without your approval. But you were planning to get my approval, I interject quietly. After you'd restructured everything to make sale look like the only viable option. Amara whirls on me, her mask of concern replaced by pure fury. You know nothing about running a modern business. You and Harold built a quaint little family company that would have stayed small forever if left to your outdated thinking. That quaint little family company employed 300 people and generated $15 million in annual revenue, Graham says, his voice getting louder. It supported our family and dozens of other families for 40 years. And it could have been so much more. Amara's voice rises to match his. Do you have any idea what Richardson Industries could be worth with proper management? With real strategic vision instead of sentimental attachment to obsolete business practices? Obsolete business practices like not stealing from your own company? I wasn't stealing. Every penny of those consulting fees was legitimate payment for work I did to improve our market position. Work you did for yourself, billed to the company, Graham corrects. That's embezzlement, Amara. The word hangs in the air like an accusation that can't be taken back. Amara's face goes white, then red, cycling through emotions too quickly to track. How dare you, she whispers. After everything I've done for this company, everything I've sacrificed to drag it into the 21st century, you're going to side with her? She points at me with such venom that I take an involuntary step backward. I've spent 3 years of my life trying to turn your father's hobby business into something respectable. I've worked 18-hour days, traveled constantly, put my own career ambitions on hold to build something we could both be proud of. And you're going to throw all of that away because your mother can't accept that she's no longer relevant? Relevant? The word comes out as a growl. Graham steps closer to Amara, his face flushed with anger I haven't seen since he was a teenager. My mother built this company. She worked alongside my father for 40 years, through recessions and boom times, through equipment failures and labor disputes and every challenge you can imagine. She earned every dollar this company has ever made. Earned? Amara laughs bitterly. She's been coasting on Harold's accomplishments for decades. When's the last time she had an original idea? When's the last time she closed a major deal or implemented an efficiency improvement or did anything besides show up and collect dividends? The cruelty in her voice is breathtaking. But what shocks me more is the realization that this is how she's always seen me, as a parasite feeding off Harold's success. Stop, Graham says quietly. Why? Because the truth hurts? Your precious mother has been dead weight for years, and everyone knows it. The only reason she had any power at all was because Harold was too sentimental to push her aside. I said stop. She's a bitter old woman who can't accept that her time is over. She belongs in a nursing home, not in a boardroom. The silence that follows is so complete I can hear the air conditioning humming through the vents. Graham stares at his wife with an expression I've never seen before. Not just anger, but disgust. Get out, he says quietly. What? Get out of this office. Get out of this building. Get out of my family's company. Amara's face cycles through shock, disbelief, and finally desperation. Graham, please. You're upset. You're not thinking clearly. We can work this out. We can work out the embezzlement. We can work out the fact that you've been planning to liquidate my family's legacy. We can work out 3 years of lies and manipulation. It wasn't manipulation. Everything I did for us, for our future. You did it for yourself, Graham says. Every decision, every change, every cruel thing you did to my mother, it was all about positioning yourself to cash out and move on to the next opportunity. Amara takes a step toward him, her hands reaching out in supplication. That's not true. I love you, Graham. I love our life together. You love what our life could get you. The accusation hits like a physical blow. Amara staggers backward, her face crumpling as the full scope of her exposure becomes clear. You can't do this, she whispers. You can't just throw away 3 years of marriage because your mother poisoned your mind with paranoid fantasies. My mother didn't have to say anything, Graham replies. The documents speak for themselves. Those documents are taken out of context. Every company explores strategic options. Every responsible CEO has contingency plans. Every responsible CEO doesn't embezzle $200,000 to pay for those contingency plans. Amara's face hardens, desperation giving way to rage. Fine, if that's how you want to play this, I have options too. I'm entitled to half of everything we built together. Half the house, half your stock in the company, half of everything. Everything we built? Graham laughs bitterly. You built nothing. You came into a successful company and started dismantling it for parts. I turned a sleepy family business into a growth-oriented enterprise worth millions. By firing experienced employees, cutting quality standards, and eliminating every policy that made this company a good place to work. I eliminated inefficiencies. You eliminated Harold's legacy. The words hit Amara like a slap. For a moment, her mask slips completely, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. Harold's legacy was mediocrity, she says with vicious clarity. Small thinking, local focus, sentimental attachment to employees who should have been replaced years ago. I was trying to build something significant by destroying what my parents spent their lives creating, by improving it, by stealing from it. They stare at each other across an unbridgeable chasm of broken trust and conflicting values. Finally, Amara straightens her shoulders and smooths down her skirt with practiced precision. I want you to think very carefully about what you're doing, she says, her voice taking on a new edge. I know things about this company, about your family, about you. That could be very damaging if they became public. The threat is unmistakable. Graham's face goes stone cold. Are you threatening me? I'm reminding you that divorce can be very expensive and very public. Business reputations can be destroyed by the right kind of media attention. Is that what you think this is about? Money? Everything is about money, Graham. The sooner you accept that, the better equipped you'll be to handle what comes next. She gathers her purse and moves toward the door, then pauses to look back at me. Enjoy your victory, Velma. But remember, I know where all the bodies are buried. Push me too far, and you might find out that your precious Harold wasn't quite the saint you remember. The door closes behind her with a soft click, leaving Graham and me alone in the sudden quiet. He slumps into his chair, looking older than his 37 years. I'm sorry, Mom, he says quietly. I should have seen it sooner. I move to the window, looking down at the parking lot where Amara's car is pulling away with unnecessary speed. How could you have seen it? She's very good at what she does. That's not an excuse. I let her turn me against you. I let her convince me you were. Losing your mind? Yeah. I turn back to face my son, this man who looks so much like his father but carries wounds I hope Harold never had to bear. She's not going to give up, I tell him. The threat about buried bodies. She meant it. Graham nods grimly. I know. But whatever she thinks she has on Dad, whatever secrets she thinks she can expose, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters more than making this right. My phone buzzes with the first of what will become 26 text messages from Amara. The first one simply says, "You have no idea what you've done." I show Graham the message. He reads it with grim satisfaction. Actually, he says, I think we know exactly what we've done. The messages start arriving at 6:47 p.m. I'm sitting in my own living room for the first time in 8 months, surrounded by furniture that Harold and I chose together, drinking coffee from my favorite mug instead of whatever generic brand Amara kept stocked in her pristine kitchen. Graham helped me move back into my house this afternoon, and for the first time since Harold died, I feel like I'm home. Then my phone begins buzzing with a vengeance. Message 1. You have no idea what you've done. Message 2. This isn't over. Message 3. Graham will figure out who you really are eventually. Message 4. Did you think I wouldn't have backup plans? Message 5. Your precious Harold wasn't the saint you think he was. I set the phone down and pour myself a glass of wine, Harold's favorite vintage, from a bottle we were saving for a special occasion that never came. If this isn't special enough, nothing will be. The messages continue throughout the evening, each one more desperate and venomous than the last. By midnight, there are 26 of them, ranging from threats to pleas to accusations that make no sense. The final message, sent at 11:47 p.m., simply says, "Check your email." I don't. The next morning, Samuel Morrison calls before I've finished my first cup of coffee. "Velma, we need to talk. Amara's attorney contacted me this morning with some interesting claims about Harold's business practices." "What kind of claims?" "The kind that are designed to embarrass your family and complicate any legal proceedings. Can you come in this afternoon?" I dress carefully for the meeting, choosing the navy blue suit I wore to board meetings when Harold and I ran the company together. It still fits perfectly, and wearing it makes me feel like myself again instead of the invisible cleaning lady I became. Samuel's office feels different this time, not nostalgic, but businesslike. There are new files on his desk, thick folders that suggest complicated legal proceedings ahead. Amara is claiming that Harold engaged in questionable business practices, Samuel says without preamble. Tax avoidance, undocumented cash transactions, possible bribery of municipal officials to secure contracts. I feel a cold knot forming in my stomach. Are any of these claims true? That's what I need to ask you. Did Harold ever make cash payments that weren't properly documented? Did he ever discuss methods of reducing tax liability that might have been aggressive? The questions hit me like physical blows. Harold was meticulous about documentation, obsessive about following tax codes and business regulations. But as I think back through 40 years of partnership, I remember conversations that took on new meaning in light of Samuel's questions. There were cash bonuses, I say slowly, Christmas bonuses for employees that Harold sometimes paid personally instead of running through payroll, to avoid employment taxes, to avoid the hassle of additional paperwork for small amounts. $50 here, $100 there. Harold thought the employees deserved to keep the full amount instead of having taxes withheld. Samuel makes a note. What about municipal contracts? Did Harold ever mention making payments to city officials? I think about the municipal contracts we won over the years. Street maintenance equipment, snow removal services, various infrastructure projects. Harold always said those contracts were won on the quality of our work and competitive pricing, but Harold made donations, I admit. To the mayor's re-election campaign, to the city council president's charity foundation. He said it was important to support civic leaders who understood the value of local business. How much in donations? Over the years? Maybe 15 or 20,000 total. Samuel's expression is carefully neutral, but I can see him calculating the implications. 20,000 in political donations spread over 20 years isn't bribery, but Amara's attorneys will frame it as evidence of a pattern of improper influence. None of this is illegal, Samuel assures me. Inappropriate documentation of employee bonuses, political donations. These are minor infractions at worst, but they could be embarrassing if presented the right way. She's trying to destroy Harold's reputation. She's trying to create leverage. If she can convince Graham that fighting her will result in public scrutiny of Harold's business practices, she might be able to negotiate a better settlement. What kind of settlement? Samuel opens another folder, revealing documents I recognize as divorce papers. She's asking for 50% of Graham's shares in Richardson Industries, the house, and substantial alimony. She's also threatening to file criminal complaints about the embezzlement charges unless Graham agrees to her terms. The audacity takes my breath away. She steals money from the company, gets caught. And now she's threatening to have Graham arrested unless he gives her half of everything. Can she do that? She can try. But Velma, there's something else you need to know. The hidden shares from VH Enterprises? She's claiming those represent fraudulent asset concealment designed to circumvent estate taxes. My heart stops. What? She's arguing that Harold created the holding company to hide assets from the IRS, and that your recent revelation of those shares proves ongoing tax fraud. I stare at Samuel in shock. Amara isn't just trying to destroy Harold's reputation. She's trying to destroy mine as well. If she can convince authorities that the hidden shares represent tax fraud, I could face criminal charges. The shares are completely legitimate, Samuel continues quickly. Harold filed all the proper paperwork, paid all required taxes, but investigations take time, and during that time your assets could be frozen. How long? Months, maybe years. I sit back in my chair, feeling the weight of Amara's strategy settling over me like a shroud. She can't win a straight fight, so she's trying to make fighting too expensive and dangerous to contemplate. What do you recommend? Samuel leans forward, his expression grave. Normally, I'd recommend negotiation. Give her enough to make the problems go away. Keep the family business intact. Move forward with minimal damage. But I've never seen anyone fight as dirty as Amara Richardson. If you give her anything, she'll see it as weakness and demand more. This woman isn't interested in fair settlement. She wants total victory. So what's the alternative? We fight back. We document every instance of embezzlement, every fraudulent consulting fee, every decision she made that benefited her personally at the expense of the company. We make her the focus of criminal investigation instead of Harold. The choice is clear, but terrifying. I can surrender and let Amara walk away with half of everything Harold and I built. Or I can fight and risk losing everything to legal fees and criminal investigations. There's one more thing, Samuel adds quietly. Graham has been getting similar pressure. Amara's attorney contacted him directly this morning with an offer to resolve everything amicably, if he agrees to certain conditions. What conditions? He doesn't want to tell you the details, but the terms are similar to what she's demanding from you. Substantial financial settlement in exchange for dropping all claims and investigations. My phone rings. Graham's number. Mom, can you meet me at the office? There's something I need to show you. An hour later, I'm back in the Richardson Industries conference room where this all began. But this time, I'm not invisible. This time I'm sitting at the head of the table where I belong, with documents spread out before me that prove I own 40% of this company. Graham looks exhausted. There are dark circles under his eyes, and his usually perfect hair is disheveled. He's been fighting his own war since yesterday, and it's taking its toll. She wants 50% of my shares, he says without preamble. The house, half my personal assets, and a guarantee that all criminal investigations will be dropped. And if you refuse, she releases everything she has about Dad to the media, files criminal complaints about the embezzlement charges, and drags us both through a public trial that could last years. I study my son's face, seeing Harold's determination mixed with exhaustion and something that might be fear. What do you want to do? Graham pulls out a thick folder and sets it on the table. I want to show you what I found in her home office last night. The documents are devastating. Contracts with 3 different acquisition firms, all dated from before Harold's death. Financial projections that show systematic looting of company assets disguised as efficiency improvements. And most damning of all, email correspondence with a private investigator detailing surveillance of our family going back 4 years. She's been planning this since before she married me, Graham says quietly. The whole relationship, the wedding, moving in with our family, it was all part of a long-term strategy to position herself to take over the company. I flip through the surveillance reports, feeling sick as I read detailed observations about Harold's health, my daily routines, Graham's travel schedule. She wasn't just stealing money. She was studying us like specimens, looking for weaknesses to exploit. There's more, Graham continues, pulling out another folder. Financial records showing she's been siphoning money into offshore accounts since 6 months after we got married. The consulting fees were just the tip of the iceberg. The numbers are staggering. Over 3 years, Amara has stolen nearly $800,000 from Richardson Industries through fake consulting contracts, inflated expense reports, and outright theft from company accounts. Why didn't you find this sooner? Because I trusted her, because she was my wife, and I thought. Graham's voice breaks slightly. I thought she loved me. I reach across the table and take his hand. She may have loved you in her own way, but she loved what you represented more. We sit in silence for a moment, surrounded by evidence of betrayal that runs deeper than either of us imagined. Finally, Graham speaks. I've made my decision. I'm not giving her anything. If she wants to fight, we'll fight. It could get ugly. It's already ugly. The question is whether we're going to let her get away with it. I think about Harold, about the values he tried to instill in our son and in our business. He would have hated the publicity, the scandal, the damage to our family's reputation, but he would have hated injustice more. Then we fight. Graham nods grimly. Samuel is filing criminal charges this afternoon. Embezzlement, fraud, theft. If she wants to destroy Dad's reputation, she'll have to do it from a jail cell. My phone buzzes with a new message, number 27 from Amara. Last chance. Accept my terms or lose everything. I show the message to Graham. He reads it, then takes my phone and types a response. We'll take our chances. 6 months later, I'm standing in the conference room again. But this time it's filled with Richardson Industries employees celebrating our most profitable quarter in 5 years. The acquisition threats are gone. The stolen money has been recovered, and Amara is serving 18 months in federal prison for embezzlement and fraud. Graham has moved back into the family house where he belongs. The company is thriving under our joint leadership, with him handling operations and expansion while I focus on strategic planning and employee relations. We've rehired most of the experienced workers Amara fired, restored the quality standards she eliminated, and rebuilt the trust with customers that her cost-cutting measures had damaged. The legal battles were brutal, just as Samuel predicted. Amara's attorneys threw everything they had at us, dredging up every questionable decision Harold ever made, and painting our family as criminals hiding behind a facade of respectability. The media attention was intense and often unfair, with business reporters more interested in scandal than truth. But in the end, the evidence spoke for itself. Harold's minor infractions, the undocumented bonuses, the political donations, were exactly what they appeared to be. A good man trying to take care of his people and his community. Amara's crimes, on the other hand, were systematic, calculated, and devastating. She never stopped fighting. Even from prison, she continues to file appeals and make accusations. But she's lost her power to intimidate us. And without that power, she's just another criminal serving time for theft. Janet from accounting approaches me with a glass of champagne, her face bright with the kind of genuine happiness I hadn't seen in the office for years. Mrs. Richardson, I just wanted to say how good it is to have you back where you belong. Thank you, Janet. It's good to be home. As the celebration continues around me, I think about the journey that brought me back to this room. 6 months ago, I was scrubbing toilets and being treated like an inconvenience. Today, I'm exactly where I should be, at the head of the table in the company Harold and I built together. Amara was right about one thing. Everything is about power, but she never understood that real power isn't taken. It's earned, and it's earned by doing the right thing, even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult. I raise my glass to Harold's portrait on the wall, the one Amara tried to have removed during her modernization campaign. The man in the photograph looks back at me with the gentle smile I fell in love with 43 years ago, and I can almost hear his voice. Well done, Velma. Well done. The company will survive. Our family will heal. And justice, delayed but not denied, has finally been served. Now I'm curious about you who listened to my story. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever been through something similar? Comment below. And meanwhile, I'm leaving on the final screen 2 other stories that are channel favorites, and they will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching until here.